I've been a big fan of a lot of the comedic elements in the MCU, things like the banter in Hawkeye and the Taika Waititi stuff that we've seen in Thor. I love the Ms. Marvel series, but She-Hulk Attorney at Law was less funny and less entertaining than I really wanted it to be. And I'm only talking about the first 4 episodes. I've seen the first 4 episodes. And it's not because the effort isn't there, and they've done some pretty decent work with the visual effects of making She-Hulk blend in with regular people in a court of law and in a legal office. And there's some pretty interesting banter and back and forth between the Incredible Hulk, played by Mark Ruffalo, and She-Hulk, played by Tatiana Maslany. And I feel like the performers and the actors really came to play. There's a level of commitment and talent definitely on display. It's just that the writing and the patter and the zaniness of the show, I can see the work in it, but I'm not, super impressed by the way it has all come together. I wasn't laughing. I guess that's the major thing. For a show that's working so hard to be a comedic, campy, whiz-bang send-up of all of the legal comedies that have come before, including Ally McBeal, which this is definitely influenced by, so much so that you see, I think, Ally McBeal is playing on one of the television sets when they go into a bar in one of the shows. The whole concept of She-Hulk is that Jennifer Walters, who is Bruce Banner's cousin, goes on a road trip with him, and they get attacked, and we get some of the Hulk's blood into Jennifer Walters' bloodstream, and so she gets infected with the same gamma radiation virus that the Hulk has, and has Hulk powers, and then the Hulk has to train Jennifer Walters to use her powers, and so she becomes a reluctant superhero and a lawyer because she continues to practice law working for a firm that specializes in superhuman legal support. And one of the first clients that Jennifer Walters, as She-Hulk, has to take on is Emil Blonsky, also known as Abomination. And so there's some comedic meat in there for sure, and it's an interesting idea to put a Hulk in realistic, real-world settings, and we get a sense of the sexuality that She-Hulk has and how she's going to, enter the dating world as this 6'7" green, super strong giant. But it also liberally pokes fun at all of these concepts and these ideas and the absurdity of it, and also the absurdity of the She-Hulk name in general. And I liked that, and I definitely saw the cleverness and the richness of the platform that this show offers. But I had a couple of different ideas around my disappointments of this, and one of them is that you have incredible shows like Invincible and The Boys on TV, which really sort of deconstruct the superhero myth in some really interesting and clever ways. Yes, and those can be a little bit repulsive for a lot of people and not for everybody, and I think cater to a different audience perhaps than She-Hulk is going to cater to, but they're also incredibly intelligently made shows with really awesome comedy moments that honestly make you laugh, sometimes out of shock, but they're very cleverly done. And I don't think that She-Hulk raises to that level. And the other thought that I had is that the Hulk has been such an incredible, pun intended, character across the MCU, but also one that has been underutilized. We've never really seen the Hulk go bananas in his own film in his own way, and I know that has a lot to do with rights issues and the messiness with how Marvel licensed out the Hulk in the past, but Mark Ruffalo has been a dependable player and an awesome actor to carry on this role, but we get him in vignettes, we get him kind of as the punchline, also pun intended, to a gag or the period on a statement, like a villain gets pummeled and that's it, or in Loki's case gets bounced back and forth. But I would love to see the Hulk fully take form, and we don't really get to see that. And then the other thing, of course, is that we've had this stream of comedy-focused Marvel projects. So all of those things kind of conspire, at least for me, to make She-Hulk feel underwhelming. The show doesn't deliver to the full extent of what the action opportunities are for She-Hulk. We've seen the Hulk just kick ass on screen in a bunch of different ways. He's been just this magnificent creation to watch in action, and so there's an expectation that we're going to see something just freakishly incredible with this new She-Hulk that we haven't seen before, and we really don't escalate to that. And then the comedy that's in the show is based a lot on our preconception or a kind of understanding of what the She-Hulk comics have been doing the last several years. I haven't read any of the She-Hulk issues that this show is kind of taking direct influence from, the John Byrne stuff or the Dan Slott stuff. I've heard they're great. I just haven't had time to dig into that side of the Marvel Universe. And so I don't have that point of reference. And then there's a lot of obvious kind of allusions and connections to the other Marvel cinematic characters and storylines. That's okay, but it just seems so heavy-handed and so forced. I do like the fourth wall stuff, the breaking the fourth wall stuff that the She-Hulk character is doing, and that sort of like, curiosity that the characters have around being able to do that. I thought that was pretty clever. It's interesting to see Emil Blonsky back, played by Tim Roth. And it's cool to see Benedict Wong in there as Wong, and we're getting some threads and connections to other Marvel characters, which does put a smile on your face. And I love the self-awareness that the writers and She-Hulk have about the fact that these cameos are real candy for any MCU fans there, and they throw out the phrase that by putting Wong and Hulk and Abomination into the show, they're creating Twitter armor so people can't get too upset about it. And of course, I've also read a lot of positive reactions to these first 4 episodes from a lot of critics out there. I just wasn't that entertained, and maybe it's because I'm coming off of Ms. Marvel, which I loved, and I loved the zaniness in that show, and it just felt a lot more kind of organic and less like it was being forced and more like there was just a joyful sense of fun and pleasure with the way that show came together. And I love the out of control, out of nowhere kind of stuff that Taika Waititi comes up with, and I know that the Thor Love and Thunder film wasn't for everybody out there, but there's 2 big Marvel projects that we've just had. There was a lot of banter and a lot of comedy in Hawkeye as well. I don't know, man. I feel like maybe a part of the equation here is the timing of She-Hulk's release. Maybe we should have had something else in the middle of it. Maybe something more akin to Falcon and the Winter Soldier that was a lot more sort of action and edgier and a lot more sort of focused in that direction, that sort of slant. Maybe the Daredevil reboot should have come before She-Hulk or something. I don't know, but for whatever reason, the show so far hasn't really hit it for me. I feel like the comedy is kind of forced and, I don't know, smug. There's a smugness about it. I feel like the action beats should be better and cooler. It feels like a lot of stuff is just sort of cut together in some weird ways, and we see Titania do this sort of sideways kick in the courtroom, which is totally unexplained. She just busts into the courtroom and gets into a fight with She-Hulk. I had a half smile watching the show thinking, okay, all right, they're trying really hard, and they've spent obviously lots of money trying to create a realistic looking She-Hulk as best they can in these light of day kind of situations, and to make her human. And there's quite a bit of commentary about the power of female strength and suppressing of rage and the intelligence that Tatiana Maslany's character has, and I liked all of that. Maybe it's got something to do with the fact that the pace and the speed of all of these elements just felt so artificial in contrast to the efforts that the MCU has put in to try to make us believe this flight of fancy, And this one is like, who cares? Who cares about any of that stuff? You've watched 25 movies. You don't care anymore. Let's just be as goofy and silly as we can be with the show. And I just haven't been able to find that connection for myself. I do know that this show is going to connect with a lot of people out there, and it's going to make a lot of people happy. And for that, I am happy. And I also believe that it's important for Marvel to try to be as inclusive with its ideas and concepts as they can. They should be trying to stretch out the boundaries and get as many people to, jump in on board with these stories and these characters as they can. That's the job of the studio. That's the job of all of these filmmakers and creators. But I also know I'm not going to like everything that they make. I wasn't a big fan of Eternals, and I am not so far a big fan of She-Hulk Attorney at Law. I'm really interested, though, in hearing your thoughts and ideas about the show. Let me know in the comments below, but I think we need to preface this that you actually need to watch the show before you start typing in your comments about what She-Hulk is, okay? I think that's only fair. At least give this show some time before you start throwing any hate or love its way. Let us know what you think in the comments below. But for me, what I've seen so far of She-Hulk, I'd probably give it about a 6 out of 10.